Alright, now I'm going to show you how to make your own arrow cutoff saw. So many guys got to take them to the arrow shops, or they go buy new arrows and you have to buy them pre-fletched, and then the guy wants to take, and when he cuts your arrow down to size, he sweeps it through there. Now, the Apple arrow saws and the other ones on the market, they're great arrow saws, but they are high dollar. Most guys, especially weekend bow hunters like me and the rest of you, you can't really afford or justify going out and spending that kind of money on an arrow saw. So, you go to Harbor Freight Tools and you get this. It's a little mini cutoff saw. 10,500 RPMs, so it's got plenty of RPMs to cut the carbon arrows or aluminums, whichever you're using. It's got a little vise in here. It's got a little set screw here. It's got different degrees where you can turn it and use it for other things. And you can make different cuts, little small micro cuts and stuff. But you keep it set on 0. That way it's square to the tip, square to the blade. Now the blade it comes with is a little bitty small silver metal blade with serrated teeth on it. You want to buy these fiber cutoff blades, friction blades. 3/8 arbor, they sell them in a 6-pack there, and you just take the screw out, take the old blade off. Do not use that little metal blade on a carbon arrow. Big no-no. Put the friction blade on, screw it back in, get it good and tight. It's got a safety so it won't go down on you. You don't have to worry. You've got to leave the guard off because it's not set up to take a 3-inch blade. It's set up to take a 2-inch. But 3-inch is easy to find, and it's not, for what you're doing, it's not going to be that far out of being safe. Your on and off switch is over here. You got the little button. And that's all there is to it. And I did this. Sure, I could have bought a nice piece of oak or walnut or something like that and made it all nice and pretty. I did this just to show you how simply you can build one and how inexpensively you can build one. $29.95 for that. You got a 2x6 or 1x6 or 1x8 laying around your house, even a 2x, whatever you got laying around. And then you can go to Menards for a couple of bucks. This is like 1.25" by 1.25" square wood stock. A couple of wood screws, wood screw it down. It'll let your arrow sit right in there, and it's level where you can, then you can tighten that up, and you can come back along here. I'll turn this where you can see it, and you can measure from the back side of the blade, this side of the blade, measure back, and then put your marks for how long the arrow you want, all the way up to 32 inches, which is a standard length of an arrow. And I'll show you why you want to do that in a minute. Then you can just take a nail wherever you want your arrows. You want a 26 or 26.5, 27. Drive a little nail down in there. That way, your nock, when you put the arrow in, the nock will fit right in there, and it's going to measure it exactly where you want it measured at. Right there in the throat of it. Just like it's sitting up against your string. That's how you want it measured to cut. I'll show you that here in just a second. Now the thing a lot of guys don't do in the pro shops is have this deal. It's called the G5 ASD. ASD is Arrow Squaring Device. You can spend the big money, more money, and buy the .001 or .00025 and all that crap that you're paying more money for. You're not getting any better arrow than what you're going to make with this simple little setup. This is probably the singly most expensive tool you'll have in your box. And it's like 38 bucks on eBay. And once your heads wear out, you can buy new ones off of there. It comes with a sandpapery side for the carbon. It comes with a blade side for the aluminum insert. And basically, you just stick your arrow in it. If this had an insert in it, lay it in there, kind of hold it down, it'll sit flat on a table, and then you just spin it, give it 8 or 9 turns, and you've trued up each end of your carbon. And that's where the biggest flaws in an arrow are. When an arrow's made, these are old PSE arrows that I removed the logo off of years ago. I put a piece of masking tape on there to show where a logo would be. When an arrow comes out of the extruder at the factory, it's coming out of there like this. Well, when it gets so far, the weight of the arrow, because this carbon tube is still warm, the weight will hang it down. At 32 inches, they've got a saw that comes out, whacks it off. Well, this last little bit back here is where the majority of your unstraightness is going to be. So the first key is to cut the back side, which is back behind the logo. Say if it said Easton Aftermath, then it'll be reading from left to right. Well, back here where your knock goes, that's the rear of the arrow. First thing you want to do is cut an inch off of that. Very first thing. So then you take, with your arrow saw shut off, you put it up against the back side of it. You measure your arrow. We're right at 28 and probably 3/8. So raise it up. We'll go to 27 and 3/8. Cut a little over an inch off the arrow. And all you got to do, once you do that, you cut that section of the arrow off. You want to go slow and easy with it. Then, let me turn this around. Last thing I did was square it up and insert. You just take a little Allen wrench, loosen that up, turn it, tighten it right back down. And a lot of guys, they try to rely on having that high dollar arrow saw and justifying that it's going to cut it perfectly square, perfectly straight, everything's great. But the thing you got to, if you don't know it, when they use those arrow saws, they don't have the up and down motion like this does. So when you're doing it, you're running that arrow in at an angle and you're arcing it into that blade to cut it. Well, that's going to cut a small arc on the end of your arrow. That's not straight, that's not square, no matter what the manufacturer says. You put it in this, push it up against there, maybe a dozen turns, just to feel good about it. And you can see it's removed the carbon off the end of that shaft. Now your shaft is completely square, and that's where it all starts. That way when you put your knock in, your knock is completely square to that shaft. And you've taken some of that out of straightness, the least straight part of the arrow, you've cut that off at the farthest end where it's going to really be the worst. And like I say, take at least an inch off that back end. Then you'll come up, let me check the zoom and everything on this. Move this over a little bit so you can really see it, and I'll zoom it in a little bit. Too much, because I want you to see that way, because right here on your knock, you see in that very bottom part, see how it's rounded? Right there where your bowstring hits that knock, and once you clip it on your string, where it rests right in there, that's your measuring point. That's the reason why I put that little nail right there. That way your knock will fit right into that. So then, slide your knock in there at your length. We're going to cut this one down to 26.5 for video purposes. You just snug up your little vise there. It's held in there perfect. Everything's solid. When you turn it on, and take the cut slow. You don't want to jam it down through there. Then and see, you got a nice cut on the end of that. Then you put it back in your ASD on this side, and you square that up. Now both ends of your arrow are square with your nock. Completely, perfectly square. If this is unsquare, unstraight in here anywhere, you've taken a .006, which is the lowest, cheapest line of any arrow manufacturer out there, and that's the only difference in the arrows is their straightness. But this, doing it this way, will completely cure that. You'll remove that little imperfection, you'll take it completely out of the picture. Now this is probably down to a .001, .002 at the worst. You can't ask for much better. There isn't a single arrow on the market that is .000000000. There's gonna be some level of unstraightness to an arrow. Then you've got your insert, which one little trick I'll show you real quick. If you got a busted arrow and you want to keep your insert, that's in there like that, get you a drill bit that will fit just inside that arrow and slide freely. You can hold it like that, and then you just take it and you'll swing it. I'm not going to do it because it'll all go flying, then I'll have to go chasing it down, but you'll basically just take it and whip it down. Hold it against your palm, let the drill bit hit your palm, and then just snap it down. You'll have to do it 10 or 15, 20 times, but it'll slowly but surely drive that insert out. And I've already done it on this one, and you can see it doesn't damage the insert. You don't want to put a field tip or a broadhead in there because your threads are going to be sticking out past that and you'll damage those. If you did want to put one in there to give it a little extra weight to help drive it out, don't screw it in all the way. Screw it in about halfway, then pop that puppy out, and that'll help pull it out a little bit more too. Now if you're using, but you cut your arrow down to length. If you're using mechanical broadheads, you don't have to worry about any alignment. You can just take, and since this was already glued in once before, I don't know if I'm going to get it right back in or not all the way, but for video purposes it'll be alright. Put your little Loctite super glue gel, the Ultra Gel. Holds them great. I've used it for several years. Then you put it in, and what do you know, actually went in all the way. Now your insert's glued in good. Give it a minute or two, let it sit and dry. If you're using a fixed blade broadhead, you'll want to use an epoxy, the 2-part that's in the syringe. I used the 5-minute. Squirt it, mix it up, put your little dab on your insert, put it in, screw your mechanical broadhead in. Now that's after you fletched the arrow. Then you can twist your broadhead and the insert to line it up with your fletchings the way you want them, and then just set it up and let it dry for an hour, 2 hours. Take your broadhead out, leave it set and dry overnight, you're good to go. Put your nock back in. Then I won't actually do it again, but you loosen that up, turn your barrel around so that you get the blade side, put your insert in there, your arrow, and then you'll spin your insert against the little blade, and it recommends to take like a Sharpie and, turn the end of your insert black with the Sharpie. Let that ink dry, then you can put it on there, and you can, as you turn it, you can pull it off and look at it, and you'll see how much of the black is coming off. When you get it to where all the black has come off, the end of your insert is completely square and completely true. So now you've got an arrow that is 100% straight and true. If there is any variance, it ain't going to be much. And you didn't have to buy the most expensive arrows in your brand or your style that you want. You can buy the .006s with a simple little setup, you know, $29.99, maybe $6 for a pack of 6 of the fiber blades. Any old piece of wood you got laying around that you can mount it to. Cut $1.50, $2 for 1.25 inch square stock. You can get it at Menards, Lowe's. Mount it on there. Mark off your measurements. Very simple, very cheap, but you can do quality work with it. And you don't have to rely on anybody else. You don't have to wait and say, well, I can't go hunting next weekend because I got to get some arrows fixed. Wrong. Fix your arrows tonight. You're done. You don't have to miss out on any hunting opportunities or wait and rely on someone else that's going to take it and they got to sweep it in or do whatever. You know what your arrows are and you have done them yourself. Next up, Grayling fletching jig. $26 on eBay. I've had this one for years. And I showed Sid Johnson how easy it was because he's got one of the Cabela's arrow saws. Nice rig. Very nice setup. And he kept complaining that he had some flyers in his arrows. They weren't all grouping the same. Well, I knew exactly what it was because when I had my bow shop, guys would bring me their bows and they're like, well, I've had this guy looking at it and he's done it, adjusted everything he can think of, but I can't hold a group with my arrows. First thing I do, pop the fletchings off, knock the insert out, use this little G5 ASD, $40 on eBay, square up the shaft, glue his insert back in, square up the insert, refletch it, say, go shoot it. They go out and shoot it at the target I had out back, and they come back, dude, this thing's grouping perfectly. I thought it was the bow. 9 times out of 10, unless you've really got your bow out of whack, 9 times out of 10, your lack of grouping is either A, you're not practiced in, or B, your arrows aren't square. They aren't straight. That's it in a nutshell. And with these simple things and not investing a ton of money, you can do this on your own and take care of it and not have to worry about it. You know that everything's done right on that arrow. It's going to give you more confidence in the field or at the target. And when you're seeing your groups coming in tighter, you're gonna get pumped up and it's gonna make you a better archer. And you get the pride of saying, hey, these are my arrows. I cut them, I squared them, I fletched them. This is mine. And that's a cool thing. And now these, like the Grayling here, and this is the one I recommend to anyone more than anything else. You can buy the Boning has one. It's identical to this except it's red. And yeah, I need to get a new tabletop. But I mean, everything's the same. This is a right wing clamp. Basically, your arrow will have your fletching will have a curvature to it. It can either curve to the right or it can cup and curve to the left. Well, to the right's a right wing, to the left's a left wing. Which one's better? There is no better. One will make the arrow spin clockwise, and to me, in my line of thinking, with it spinning clockwise, when it hits its target, whether it's a deer, whatever, with that arrow spinning clockwise, you're not going to get your point or your broadhead to loosen up. If it's spinning counterclockwise, you've got a chance of it hitting and then that arrow spinning a little bit more and then it goes loose. That can be a problem. That's why I don't use left wing. Never have and I never will. They have a straight clamp also that doesn't have any helical to it whatsoever. If you're shooting a whisker biscuit rest or a containment rest, that's what you want to use, is a straight clamp, no helical. You can take, you've got 2 adjusting knobs here, and that will pitch this. Either make it straight, or pitch it this way, or pitch it that way. You can put a little bit of right offset to it, where you just basically leave this one tight, loosen this one up, and then you push that down, tighten that back up. That'll give you your offset. You're good to go. And you can take and it's got some screw holes there. You can mount it on a nice piece of board so it's straight or solid and everything. on the back of the dial, it's got a circle with a flat spot cut in it. That flat spot is for your cock vane or your odd color vane. You're always going to have two of one color, one of a different color. That's for your different colored vane. So when you put that in, you always start it with that flat spot facing up, so that's your cock vane first, and then you can orient it. Say you've got East and Aftermath written right there, and you want it facing, say you shoot with your cock vane, your odd color vane straight up on your bow. You want it where you can see the name of your arrow. Then you can set that, twist that arrow while it's in the jig. You can put that name and label wherever you want it. That way all your arrows look the same when they're on there. Everything's consistent. Then, I highly recommend the Boning Blazer vanes. For bow hunters, and I know target shooters that shoot them. Boning Blazer vanes, little 2 inches, good a vane as you can get. And basically you want to start the vane about an inch or so, inch and a half from the very back, or from the nock. And it's got little marks on there, and when you get it to where you find how you want it on there, you can take a little white out and put you a mark on, little dot on that little mark there, so you know where to start the back of your fletching every single time. That's the most important part. That keeps your fletchings all even and in line. Use your Loctite Super Glue Ultra Gel, and it doesn't take a whole bunch. You just put a little drizzle down the vane, channel of the vane, slide it in. Before it touches the shaft, the back of the clamp up against the receiver. Then you put it in, just apply a little, you don't have to put a whole lot of pressure, just a little bit. You'll see the glue squeeze out each end. Leave it there. Don't worry about wiping it off or chipping it off. That'll help keep the front and the back of the vane glued to the shaft. That's where you're going to have any vane failure is going to come from the front or the back of the shaft. So you're better off to leave that little dot there and not worry about it. Leave it sit there for a couple of seconds. Pop. And there you have it. And you can see it's got a little bit of curvature to it, and you can see the offset. Then you go back, clamp that vane in exactly where you clamped the other one. And before you put it on there, which, you know, you'll turn the receiver. That puts it, it's got little clicks. Line that up. Make sure that the back of your vanes are lined up. And they're lined up perfect. Put your little drizzle of the super glue in there. And like I say, it don't take much, just a little drizzle down through there. Slide it. It's magnetized, so it'll slap it on there. Push it back against the receiver. And then push it down and hold it. I always take and put my finger and push the arrow down in that little groove. That way I know it's in there good and flush. I know I'm getting my vanes on identical each time. Leave her sit there for just a minute. Pop it off. Turn it one more time. Grab one more vane. Line it up exactly where the other one was. Little drizzle. It's getting cold and it's getting thicker. Let the clamp fall on where it goes, but keep it off the shaft. Push it down. Make sure it's lined up good. Push it down and hold it. And you can use that Tim's Goat Tough glue. I don't suggest any of the Gorilla Glues. Gorilla Glues will actually swell as they dry, and you don't want that when you're doing fletchings or when you're doing inserts. Bad deal. And they make some fletching cements, but They don't like that boning fletching cement. I'm not real crazy about it. I've had it fail too many times, especially if you use arrow wraps, the vinyl arrow wraps. They'll fail on you. Loctite Ultra Gel. You can get it anywhere. You don't have to go to an archery shop to buy it. And it works perfect. And there, you fletched your own arrow. Put whatever color veins you want. You can buy the veins in bulk off of eBay, so you've always got plenty. And you can get the colors you want. You can buy the color nocks you want. Buy the color veins you want. Get your arrow wrap. You can dress your arrows up, make them look any way you want with minimal issues. And you'll have a better arrow. You'll have tighter groups. You'll be a better archer for it. You know, yeah, you can say, well, I've been doing this all these years and it works. Well, yeah, sure it can work, but there's that one time that you're going to be out and it may not work. For whatever, the wind catches it just right. And because everything isn't where it should be, it's going to affect it. That's the thing a lot of guys lose sight of. There's too many variables in the woods. Because you've been in the woods, that wind can go in a circle in the area. It can be, say it's coming out of the west, but you're sitting there and 1 minute it's hitting you in the back, next minute it's hitting you in the face, next minute it's hitting you off to the side. That's going to affect your arrow. A lot of guys don't realize that. And if your arrow is less than the way it should be or less than perfect, it's going to magnify any imperfections. And you got the buck of a lifetime sitting in front of you at 20, 25 yards, 18 yards, whatever. The less imperfections you got, the more successful you're going to be as a hunter. And you can take pride in your equipment because what you've got, you've done. And you can see. You don't have to spend $1,000 to do your own stuff. You can do it for on the cheap and do quality work with it. Like I said, you get a good clamp. I don't recommend the Arizona Easy Fletch and those ones that you put all 3 veins in, put the arrow in, stand it up, put all 3 veins in, put the glue on them, and then you clamp it up around there. Don't mess with those. Those are a waste of time and a waste of money. Get you a good grayling or even a boning. Get a right wing clamp, unless you're shooting a whisker biscuit or containment rest. Then use a straight clamp on this because you want your veins straight, especially on a whisker biscuit. Well, containment rest is not as critical because your veins aren't actually passing through the bristles. But you put the straight on them. For that, anything else, you can use the right wing clamp and you can play with your offset. See how much offset makes your arrows fly better, you know. But like I said, the G5 ASD, it's a must-have for any archer. I don't care what you're doing, whether you're hunting or you're doing tournaments. This is the best $40 you will ever spend if you have a bow and shoot arrows. You can even do crossbow bolts on it. Makes any kind of arrow. This dude is a must-have. Don't kid yourself and think it'll be okay. Well, I haven't had problems. Well, you might have had problems, but you didn't realize it. Because your arrows, you know, you're too easily to sit there and say, well, I moved, or well, I wasn't spot on, or well, I flinched a little at release, or whatever. And you might have been spot on everything, but your arrow wasn't. And for me, I mean, I had my shop for years. I took a lot of business away from guys and even had some of them get mad at me and call me and stuff. But it's like, guys, you're providing a service, do the service right. If you're going to do it for yourself, you got to understand what you need and what it takes for you to do it right. And you can do it right on your own. Go to your archery shop, buy the shafts, come home, do them up yourself. You don't have to depend on anyone else. And you can do it exactly the way you want it. And you'll know that it's right when you're done. That's the most important part. But there you go. Handy dandy little arrow cut-off saw. You don't need to burn up a credit card or go without eating anything next week. You can make it yourself at home. does a great job. Your little G5 ASD, and you can buy these little barrels that have your sanding side and your cutting side. You can buy just the replacements. You don't have to buy this whole thing whenever these get worn out. I just ordered a new barrel because the sanding side's getting pretty soft and the cutting side's getting a little bit dull. And once it's, you know, like I say, it's easy to use. You can just put the arrow in it. It sits flat on the table. You put the arrow in it and you can do it like this. But I recommend putting it in, hold it down with your fingers, and just do light twists like that, so that way you don't have any variance in the arrow. Do it all off, and you're done. And you see, it didn't take 2 hours to do an arrow. I mean, if you were just doing the arrows and not sitting here bumping your gums like I am, you know, you'd be done. You could do a half a dozen arrows in the amount of time, or even a dozen arrows in the amount of time I've done this video. And you don't have to leave, don't have to go anywhere. You can do it on a rainy day, on a snowy day, whatever. You bust some arrows and you got the shafts sitting at home. You can buy them in bulk. You can buy a dozen on eBay for what you'll pay for 6 in an archery shop. And they're bare shafts, 32-inch shafts. You got your saw, cut them, square the ends, glue your insert in, put your nocks in, put your wraps on it, fletch it, you're done. You don't have to go nowhere. And you don't, this stuff doesn't take up 2 tons of room. I mean, you could even mount your arrow, your fletch, to your arrow saw. It's there. You can come over here and mount this on here, on the end. You could come out here on the end and mount it. So that way you've got everything on one board. You got your fletch, you've got your arrow squaring device, and you can put some epoxy on there, glue that sucker down. It's already held stationary for you. Everything's right there. You can build your own little arrow station for on the cheap. You can buy the Loctite Super Glue Gel anywhere. And you can order the Blazer vanes in bulk. You can buy 2 or 3 dozen of each for cheap. Better than going down to Gander Mountain or your local archery shop and paying their markup on them. So there you have it. Easy peasy. And no bazingas to it either. You can do it yourself, and it's that simple. And if you happen to buy your own stuff and you make it, you can come right back to this video, go right through it with me as I do it, and you'll have a perfect arrow. You'll notice your groups are going to start getting tighter. You're going to notice that, you know, your arrows look better because you did them. You did them the way you want them. You don't have to take that stupid yellow and 2 greens or red and 2 greens or whatever comes on these arrows that you buy at the Gander Mountain or your local pro shop. Do your own. You can put the fancy Ted Nugent zebras on it. You know, but there you go.